OpenAI just released a new version of GPT-5 specially trained for coding. This is exclusively available within their Codex environment. You can access it in terminal, in an IDE, and on web. And this is much better at code reviews than the previous versions. So it's really specialized specifically for coding. It seems to be much better at coding tasks, even compared to GPT-5 on high settings. And for a complex task, it can run independently for more than 7 hours. So long horizon coding tasks are in reach now. So this is a specialized optimized version of GPT-5, which they're calling GPT-5 Codex. They really need to work on their naming. It's getting really confusing. But this is a specialized model trained for real-world software engineering workflows. And you're going to see later in the video that they have focused on real-world software engineering tasks, including code reviews, and it's a much better at long horizon tasks. So Codex is now available everywhere. So there is a cloud version within ChatGPT. There is even a code review version, and you can use it either through the CLI or IDE extension. I think it's available in VS Code and Cursor at the moment. And it's part of your ChatGPT subscription. So it's going to be available to Plus, Pro, Business, Education, and Enterprise plans. You don't have to pay anything extra. Keep in mind there are some rate limits, but I think they are pretty generous. So first, a quick look at some benchmarks. The first one that they have reported is the SWE Bench Verified. It seems to be a couple of percent better than the existing GPT-5 on high settings. It also has the same reasoning efforts, low, medium, high. Now, something you will notice is that this is not the actual reported score of GPT-5 Hive. Actually, if you go back to the initial announcement of GPT-5, it was 74.9% on the SWE Bench Verified. But you'll notice that it was using only 477 questions out of the 500 that are available on SWE Bench Verified. In fact, any previous model that was trained and tested on SWE Bench Verified from OpenAI were tested on 477 questions. But now for this test, they are testing it on all 500 questions. And you can actually see that the GPT-5 High has a huge performance decrease. So it seems like for the remaining 22 questions, GPT-5 is struggling a lot. And same seems to be the case with GPT-5 Codex on high settings as well, because it's not able to even beat this score. So that being said, 23 questions are still a significant portion, and I'm actually glad that they started adding those. Now, when it comes to code refactoring tasks, it's easily, I would say 50% better than GPT-5 on high settings, which is pretty incredible. But I personally think this is the most important chart of this release, and it really shows where these coding agents are going. In order to explain that chart, let's look at this. So according to them, for the bottom 10% of the user turns, in terms of the number of tokens generated, GPT-5 uses 93% or almost 94% fewer tokens than GPT-5 Codex. But for the top 10%, GPT-5 Codex thinks more, spending twice as long, and editing, testing, and iterating. So if you look here, this has the ability to dynamically select the reasoning effort and then also how many tokens it's going to generate. So for low reasoning or low effort tasks, it's generating a lot less tokens compared to GPT-5, but where the complexity of the task increases, it's generating almost twice the number of tokens of GPT-5. Now, hopefully these are useful tokens based on the results that we saw from the benchmarks, but you can actually see that the model has the ability now to think longer for complex tasks. And this is one of the promise of GPT-5 type of models, that they are going to have this dynamic routing. But here, even it's dynamically selecting the effort that is going to put in based on the complexity of the task. So here they say GPT-5 Codex adopts how much time it spends thinking more dynamically based on the complexity of the task. As I said, this is going to be pretty incredible if it works. And The model combines two essential skills for coding agents. So pairing with developers in interactive sessions, so you can actually use it as a chat model. And then you can offload the work which the model can do independently for longer tasks. And the beauty of Codex as a product is that you can run it locally on CLI. And then if you want, you can just offload some tasks to the cloud version, which runs in the cloud independent of your input, which is a pretty great user experience. Another aspect that they have specifically focused on is code reviews. Now, software engineers do a lot of code reviews. So they say that GPT-5 Codex has been trained specifically for conducting code reviews and finding critical flaws. When reviewing, it navigates your code base, reasons through dependencies, and runs your code and tests it in order to validate correctness. I personally have been mostly using Claude Code, but I am going to definitely try GPT-5 Codex and see how good this model is. So based on their internal benchmarks, the number of incorrect comments has reduced substantially. It went from 13% all the way down to almost 4%, which is pretty incredible. The number of high impact comments generated by GPT-5 Codex compared to GPT-5 has increased, again, by a good 12 to 13%. And that being said, that it has actually reduced the average number of comments per PR, which is pretty good as well. Now, these updates are available in Codex CLI. You can also use this as a part of IDE. For example, VS Code and Cursor have support for Codex CLI, but I don't know how the experience is going to be, because I think these are different integrations, although the underlying model is the same, but depending on the interface that you're using, I think you may run into different experience. From what I have seen and heard, Codex CLI seems to be the purest experience where you can get the best results. So I'm going to do some tests with Codex CLI and Codex in the IDE, and we'll probably report this in another video. People who had early access to this model seems to really like it. And OpenAI, I'm also open to early access. Okay, so here is Dan. I think he is part of the Every, or CEO or co-founder of Every. So he says there are two important things: dynamic thinking time. They moved this pattern from ChatGPT to their coding model. It's going to be standard going forward, right? So the model itself can decide how much thinking effort it needs to spend based on the complexity of the task. And then local to web handoff. So your agent should be with you with full context wherever you use it. Now, the beauty is that you can start a task in a CLI and then hand it off to the web version of Codex. And according to these reports, it seems to be working. So by default, Codex runs in a sandbox environment with network access disabled. This is for the safety, because it's going to be running code and you don't want the agent to run either malicious code or perform some destructive actions. It's a similar pattern that we have seen in other CLIs, including Claude Code, Gemini CLI, and I think that is the right way to go. Now, with these updates, Codex CLI definitely is catching up to Claude Code, which is great for us customers and consumers. Now, pricing and availability. So this is part of ChatGPT Plus Pro Business, Education, and Enterprise. I think they have pretty generous rate limits for each of these, but they say that with Plus EDU and Business Seats can cover a few focused coding sessions each week, while Pro can support a full work week across multiple projects. Right? So do check it out and see if you run into any issues. Now, this does not seem to be available through API yet. They say for developers using Codex CLI via the API, we plan to make GPT-5 Codex available in the API soon. So I think it's going to be available pretty soon. Okay, I'm going to be testing GPT-5 Codex in Codex CLI. It's really hard to keep track of how many codecs there are. Watch out for that video. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you in the next one.